Welcome to the Sam and Joe VA Show, where we teach women just like you how to start and scale a thriving virtual assistant business.
We're your hosts, Sam and Joe, and get ready to have the control, flexibility, and freedom you've always dreamed of.
Welcome to episode 123, How to Prevent Scope Creep.
More and more virtual assistants are offering packages of services to their clients, which is great because it's a fantastic way to ensure that the work that you're doing is profitable.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's a sneaky little thing that happens without us knowing sometimes, especially if we're new to the industry, and that's called scope creep. And just like the name implies, it's creepy. We don't like it. We want to stop it. We want to say, no, not in our office. Thank you very much.
I love the name of it, scope creep, because you're right, it is creepy, and we do not want creeping things, right? Creepy crawlies and spiders. That's the kind of vibes it gives me. Do not want those creepers. And
No.
we're for those who are kind of new to the industry, we're talking about things where there's a fixed fee for something. It could be a package of services, it could be a project, it could be something one-off that you do. So it's got that parameter of it's a fixed fee. You're going to deliver a piece of work.
Yeah. And the scope creep, if you haven't heard of that term before, it's basically when the work increases, but the budget doesn't.
And it's a sneaky little thing, isn't it? Because it can happen without you realizing. So this is why we've got this topic. We want to prevent this from happening because we want you all to be profitable and to be making money in your virtual assistant business. So grab a pen and paper, listen up, because we're going to go through some really key things that you may not have even thought about before.
It's really important. It's really important because it's actually up to you. It's not the client. It's not up to the client to make sure scope creep doesn't happen. It's up to you. So you need to think of yourself as a project manager, as a gatekeeper, as you've got to manage this. You've absolutely got to manage it. And you've got to sometimes that's going to mean that you need to be courageous in some conversations and really professional about it as well.
And a boundary boss.
Oh, nice. A boundary boss. Yes.
I mean, that is the crux of this whole thing, right?
Yeah.
We've got this boundary. Think of it like a fence around the things that you have agreed inside this fixed fee, and it is a fence, and you do not want to open that gate. You have to have that boundary in place.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. Boundary boss. So, boundary boss hats are now on. Scope creep can happen at any point throughout the project. So, we've kind of split up our ways of preventing scope creep in the kind of the before you've gotten started, the during while you're working, and then at the end and after the project should have already finished.
All right, let's start with some things that you need to think about when you are developing your proposal, thinking about this project, thinking about the budget, and having this discussion with the client.
Yeah, it's going to be no surprise that the first thing that we are going to talk about is the C word, not the creep word, the other C word, contracts.
Yes. This is imperative that you have a written and signed contract with your client. And we're going to go through some things that it needs to outline, because if you don't, and they're like, oh, but you said, or I thought, or, oh, I was under the impression that, all of that goes out the window when you have a signed contract, because you can refer back to your contract of what you both agreed to.
Yeah, it's the perfect place to lay out officially all of those expectations. So there are no surprises. Nothing's going to come and bite you on the bum later when you go, oh no, this is just blown out. What am I going to do about it now? If you've got the contract, if everyone's signed it, everyone's on board.
Yeah. It's easy to refer to.
Yeah.
So when you're thinking about that kind of contract, we're going to roll the kind of contract and the proposal kind of we're thinking about that as one kind of document. So inside that contract, that proposal, you must have clear parameters about exactly what is included and, just as important, what is excluded in this
Yeah,
project or
don't
package.
don't be afraid to get really, really detailed here. In fact, we encourage you to be really if you can think of it, put it in there.
Mm-hmm.
We see a lot of virtual assistants kind of shy away from really robust, detailed contracts and proposals. However, especially in this case, when it comes to projects where you need to set those parameters, it needs to be detailed.
Mm-hmm.
Don't shy away from it. It's not going to put off your client. In fact, it's probably going to do the opposite. It's going to reassure them because it's going to be really, really clear to them what is included and what isn't.
And it shows how professional you are because you understand what is involved in the project. And by having that detail, they're going to have the confidence of like, oh, wow, this person is a specialist. They know what they're doing. They've thought about all of these things that I've never even considered or thought about myself. So it's going to make you stand out.
So think about how many catch-ups are you going to need throughout the project?
Mm-hmm.
How many amendments or revisions or drafts are you going to give them throughout the project?
Mm-hmm. You might call it iterations. So how many iterations are going to be in there? So write these things in there, specifically the number of them.
Yeah. What's going to happen after the project's finished and they come back and they want more tweaks or they want some additions or they want you to maintain something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's when you can think about having a hourly rate or a specific extra package that they could then go on to that gives them that ongoing support. So clearly state that in there.
Yeah. If you are an experienced virtual assistant and you've got a few projects under your belt already, this is where you need to go back and think really hard. What's happened in past projects with clients? What types of things have they kind of asked for in addition to what you've already agreed upon?
Mm.
Anything that you've ever been asked for in the past, put it down in here as an addition. It's clearly an addition that is going to require an additional fee of some sort.
Something that the options, add-ons, things that they can choose whether they include that in this project or not.
It's all going to help.
Mhm. And then one of the other super clear things that you need to state in your proposal is your timeline with your specific milestones. Because there is going to be points in this project that you are going to rely on the client to deliver something to you, provide some information, some graphics, some detail so that you can complete the project. So by clearly stating those timelines, deadlines, and milestones in there, your client then can make that time and have that in their calendar and know exactly when you need something so that it doesn't drag the project on. The further the project goes on and drags on, the more it's going to cost you. There'll be a lot more communication. There'll be extra follow-ups and emails, checking in, asking for things, and all of that is your time, and that starts to suck your profit from your project. It's all scope creep.
Yeah, and the busier you become, the more important the timelines and the milestones and the deadlines are.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have booked out, say, a week of your time for a particular project for a particular client, and that client isn't playing ball when it comes to providing the information that you're waiting on, well, what do you do with that week?
Mm.
Is that client then going to expect you to be able to drop everything the following week, which you may have booked out for another particular client's project?
Yep. Of course they are going to if it was not stated somewhere in the proposal, the contract, right? So you have to write that stuff in there. What is the agreed timeline and what's going to happen if they miss the timeline? Miss the
Yeah, like,
deadline.
in my opinion, it's a snooze, you lose type of situation. As long as I've done my part in terms of communicating really clearly, "Hey, remember that deadline that we talked about? I need it by then. If I don't get it, you lose your slot. It's going to somebody else, and you may have to wait another month or 2 months to get another chance to work with me."
Yeah.
You snooze, you lose.
Yeah, I mean, that brings us to kind of the next section, which is during the project. And this is about communicating proactively. So
Mhm.
you've got your timeline, you've got your milestones. So you can't just assume that the client's going to remember when they sign the contract and put all those things in their calendar and they're going to provide you with whatever you need by the deadline. Like some clients will, but
Not
it's
really.
very unrealistic to expect a client to do that. So this is about you proactively communicating, hey, we've got the deadline coming up for when you need to provide your photography to me. How's that going? Reminding you of whatever the date is and just checking in with them, proactively communicating.
Yeah. The other thing that can happen, during the project, while you're working on it is, those things that we talked about earlier on. This is where the client often comes back to you and they want some additional revisions, or they all of a sudden they want to go in a direction that wasn't agreed upon, was never been talked about. It's gonna require a whole heap of extra work, or it's a brand new add-on that wasn't agreed upon either. Whatever it is that they're asking for that doesn't fall within those pre-agreed perimeters, you need to immediately say, "Yep, I can absolutely do that. However, it is gonna cost X, 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 as
Mhm.
per stated in the proposal or
Yeah.
contract."
Yeah. Or saying, no, actually, I can't do that.
Yeah.
That's not going to work within the timeline. That could be something that we look at doing
Mm,
in the future in a few months. This is how much it would cost. Let me know if that is something that you'd like to lock in.
yeah.
Like it's up to you. You know your timelines, you know your capacity. This is your opportunity to say straight away, yes, can do that, but it's out of scope, or no, can't do that. Could do that later in a couple of months.
And explain to them why.
Mm.
Explain to them why it might be something that you can't do immediately. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to say, "Look," remind them, "This is the week I've got for you. I'm fully booked for the next 3 weeks
Mm.
after that," or whatever the reason is.
Yeah.
That's just one example.
Mm. And trust us, clients are going to try and creep extra little things in there throughout the project. Like they are going to try. And it's up to you to have that confidence to straight away
Mm.
say, that's out of scope, but I can absolutely do that. It's going to be an extra X dollars.
This is where that courage comes in that we talked about
Mhm.
earlier on, isn't it? Having the courage, having the confidence to immediately address it and be really honest about
Mm.
it.
Yeah. And this is why it's so important when you're thinking about your proposal and putting it all together that all of the detail is in there, because then it makes it just an easy decision for you to say, that's out of scope, because you can refer to it specifically inside the proposal and in the signed contract. And there's no kind of disagreement or weirdness or awkwardness that needs to happen at this point because
No.
it's all written there in the contract. You've thought about it prior.
All right, let's now go to the end of the project. And I think now's a really good time to talk about a term that we've recently come across called gold plating.
Hmm.
Because not all scope creep is actually created by clients. Sometimes we do it without even realizing it.
Mm-hmm. Gold plating. This is where you tweak it and tweak it and tweak it. Oh, and I'm just going to do this little extra. And oh, I think this could be really good for the whatever you've created, and you keep adding and tweaking and trying to get it to an even more perfect place. Every time you do that, you are adding extra cost into the project, your cost, and you are diminishing that profit in that project unnecessarily.
Yeah, it's the people pleasers in us comes out at this point. We want to give them even more value than we've already given them at that point in the project. We want to make it better. We want to really wow them to the point that they're never going to go anywhere else ever again.
This is what you think, right?
This is what you're thinking. This is what you're thinking. It's the perfectionists in us that we just don't know when to stop fiddling.
Yeah. Striving for perfection is just like a losing game. You're never going to get something perfect. It has to be quality work that the client is going to be happy with. It doesn't need to get to this unattainable perfection point.
No. And in fact, often, especially with creative projects, sometimes less is more. Sometimes the more we tweak and the more we work on something, the worse it actually then becomes. So you end up going back 3 or 4 different revisions on something and going, oh, I should have just stopped there. Why didn't I just stop there?
Yeah.
But it's all money. All of this extra time that you're putting in, it is all money. It's eating away from your profit.
Yeah. So there we have it. There are all of our ways for you to take control of your projects and your packages and your fixed fees and prevent that scope creep from coming in. Now, if you know that you would love to create some packages, you have no idea how, go and check out the Members Club, because inside the vault, inside the Members Club, there is the most incredible, is it like a 90-minute workshop? I think it was 90 minutes, a workshop that took you step by step through how to create packages inside your business. So we'll drop a link below to go and check that out, because packages and fixed fees, they really are a great way to increase the profit in your business and start earning more money without spending more time. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Sam and Joe VA Show. If you'd like to find out more, head to the VA Foundry website to check out the Members Club and the amazing resources, training, and coaching.
You can find us at thevafoundry.com.